Salvete omnes, I am Pieter Vynckier, and you are watching Latin Everywhere. This year, the famous Bayeux Tapestry has been in the news 3 times already. Of course, the most recent news is that France will be lending it to the British Museum in London next year, while the museum in Bayeux is being renovated. Earlier this year, in March, a fragment that had been removed from the tapestry during World War II was rediscovered in Germany. The piece is about to be returned to France. Follow the link in the description below if you want to read more. In the beginning of the year, in January, even more news relating to the Bayeux Tapestry came out, when British archaeologists from Newcastle University reinterpreted previous finds at the South English village of Bosom as the residence of Harold, depicted on the Bayeux Tapestry. Again, you can read more via the links below. The Bayeux Tapestry, which is, to be correct, not a tapestry but a work of embroidery, depicts in vibrant consecutive scenes the Battle of Hastings in the year 1066 and some previous events associated with the battle. It was made only a handful of years after the battle and the following successful takeover of the English kingdom by Duke William of Normandy. The beautiful pictures are accompanied by short Latin descriptions. Hearing all this news about the tapestry, I thought it was a good occasion to read with you those Latin sentences. So, without further ado, let's read the Bayeux Tapestry.
So, at the beginning of the tapestry of Bayeux, we see a palace with a king and the Latin words Edward Rex. So it's King Edward. Next to it, we see a couple of noblemen on their horses with dogs in front of them. Apparently they are a hunting party because the one in front also has a falcon on his hand. And we read, Ubi Harold dux Anglorum et sui milites equitant ad Bosam. So this is where Duke Harold of the English and his soldiers ride on their horses to Bosom. In Bosom, we see a church, in Latin, Ecclesia. There they apparently have a feast in some kind of building. And the next thing we read above the ships is Hic Harold mare navigavit, et velis vento plenis venit in terra vidonis comitis. Here Harold sailed the sea and came with sails filled with wind in the land of Count Vidor, or Guy, as one would say in modern English. In one of the ships, one can see at the front a man standing there, and his name is given. It's Harold. The next scene, we're on land again, and we read Hic apprehendit vido Haroldum. So here, Wido seized, captured Harold. So for some other reason, when Harold arrived in Normandy, we do not know exactly why. Some people say he was stranded there by accident, but we are not sure. But it was in the region of the town of Ponthieu, where this Wido was a count. So we continue what happens next. Et duxit eum ad Belrem et ibi eum tenuit. So this widow led him to what in Latin is called Belrem. It's a French town of Borin. Et ibi eum tenuit, and he kept him there. So he took Harold as a prisoner. The next scene, we see a man discussing, and that is what the Latin tells us, ubi Harold et Wido parabolant. So this is where Harold and Wido confer. In the next scene, there is a separate Latin word for a small man named Thorold, who is in a quite awkward position there. But the main scene says, ubi nunti Wilhelmi docis venerunt ad Widonem. So this is where messengers of Duke William came to Wido. So apparently the Duke of Normandy had heard about the capture of Harold, and some negotiations are being carried out. Then we see two fearsome riders on horseback, who are the Nunti Wilhelmi, the messengers of William. And hic venit nuntius ad Wilhelmum ducem. Here the messenger came to Duke William, who has quite a nice castle with two guards standing on top of it. Apparently the negotiations had some kind of result, because the next thing we read is hic Wido adduxit Haroldum ad Wilhelmum Normannorum ducem. Here Wido led Harold to William, Duke of the Normans, and that is exactly what we see on the tapestry, with all the horsemen and Harold, who is being handed over to William. In the next scene, we see some of the same horsemen again. Hic dux Wilhelm cum Haroldo venit ad Palatium suum. So here Duke William came to his palace with Harold. So Harold has been transferred from Wido to William and is taken to the residence of the Norman Duke. We see most likely Harold and William talking to each other inside of his so-called palace, but there is no Latin there to tell us what they are talking about. Then there is a strange scene where a man is apparently hitting a woman, but the Latin only says ubi unus clericus et elf-giva. So where a cleric and elf-giva, and no verb. We do not know what has happened there. We continue the story. Hic Willem dux et exercitus eus venerunt ad montem Michaelis. Here Duke Willem and his army came to the Mount of Michael, which in French is called Le Mont Saint-Michel, the famous monastery perched on an island in the ocean. You can see the Mont Saint-Michel in the background. This Mont Saint-Michel is situated in the sea where a river flows into the sea, and this river used to be the border between the Duchy of Normandy and the Duchy of Brittany. And what do we read next? Et hic transierunt flumen Cosnonis, which means, and here they crossed the river Cusnon. Below that, we see a scene with men falling off their horses and someone rescuing them, and the title tells us, Hic Harold Dux trahebat eos de arena. So here, Duke Harold pulls them out of the sand. And the bay of the Mont Saint-Michel is very famous for its quicksands, so apparently Harold saved some men there. They continue their journey at venerunt ad Dol, and they came to Dol, which is a town in Brittany. You see them attacking at Conan fuga vertit, and Conan turned in flight. You see him escaping his city by a rope. This Conan was the Duke of Brittany. So apparently Harold is assisting William in his war in Brittany. The war continues. We see another city called Rednes, which is modern-day Rennes in Brittany. And hic milites Wilhelmi ducis pugnant contra Dinantes. We see a new city, and what does the Latin tells us, and here the knights or the soldiers of Duke William fight against the inhabitants of Dinan, another city in Brittany. At the right-hand side of the city, we read, Et Conan claves porexit. And Conan passed out the keys. So he surrenders the city to the Duke of Normandy. You might have noticed that the name of the Duke of Brittany is now spelled with a U, Conan, and in the previous sentence it was spelled konan, but there are many examples in this tapestry of inconsistent spelling, so it won't be the last time you notice something like that. But we continue our reading, and we see hic Wilhelm dedit Haroldo arma. So here William gave weapons or arms to Harold, and you see William putting a helmet and other weapons on to Harold. And then hic Wilhelm venit Bagias, which is nice because here William came to Bayeux, which is where the tapestry is right now and how it is known. And it's probably the church of Bayeux where that we see here on that hill. Then there is another interesting scene. We see Harold standing in between relics of saints while touching them, and we see Duke William on his throne, and we read Ubi Harold sacramentum fecit Wilhelmo duci. So where Harold made an oath to Duke William, alas, it does not say what he is swearing. We continue, hic Harold Dux reversus est ad Anglicam terram. So he's finally home. Here Duke Harold has returned to English land. Et venit ad Edvardu regem, and he came to King Edward. Hic portatur corpus Edwardi regis ad ecclesiam sancti Petri apostoli. So here the body of King Edward is carried to the church of Saint Peter the Apostle. Hic Eduardus Rex in Lēctiō alloquitur fideles, et hic defunctus est. Here King Edward speaks in bed to his faithful followers, and here he has passed away. It seems that this scene should have been placed before the last one, since here the king is still dying while he is already dead in the previous one. But let us continue what happens next. Hic dederunt Haroldo coronam regis. Here they gave the king's crown to Harold. So Harold is chosen as the next king of England. Hic residet Harold Rex Anglorum. And here resides Harold, king of the English. Besides him, we see another figure with Latin titulōs, stigant archiepiscopus, archbishop stigant. Isti mirantur stelam. These people look in wonder at the star. You can see on the Bayeux Tapestry that this is not a normal star. It is a comet, and we know which one it is. It was the comet of Halley that appeared in the sky that year. Next we see Harald, which I do not have to translate. Hic navis Anglicā venit interam Wilhelmi docis. So here an English ship came to the land of Duke William. Apparently, Duke William is not amused with the news he receives, because next we read, Hic Wilhelm dux jussit naves edificare. So here Duke William ordered ships to be built. And then we have a scene where we see the man building ships. They cut down trees, they make planks out of the trees, and then they assemble the new ships. Hic trahunt naves ad mare. Here they pull the ships to the sea. Isti portant armas ad naves, et hic trahunt carrum cum vino et armis. These men carry weapons or arms to the ships, and here they drag a cart with wine and arms. So everything is being prepared to invade England. Hic Wilhelm dux in magno navigio mare transivit et venit ad Pevenesai. I'm sorry. So here Duke William, in a great boat, crossed the sea and came to Pevensey. The nice thing here is that the scene is very much stretched out, because the journey, of course, across the channel takes some time. Hic exeunt cavalli de navibus. Here the horses leave the ships. Et hic milites festinaverunt Hestinga. And here the soldiers, or the knights, hurried towards Hastings, ut cibum raperentur, to steal food. Hic est Wadart, and here is Wadart, a Norman noble. Hic coquitur caro. Here the meat is being cooked. Et hic ministraverunt, ministry, and here the servants serve the meat, of course. So after the landing in England, the Norman nobles have quite a meal. Hic fecerunt prandium. Here they have a meal. Et hic episcopus cibum et potum benedicit. And here the bishop blesses the food and drink. Again, Odo Episcopus, Bishop Odo, Wilhelm, William, Rodbert, Robert. Iste jussit ut foderetur castellum ad Hestenga. And this man ordered that a castle should be dug, should be built at Hastings. And then we see the castra, the camp. Then we see the next scene. Hic nuntiatumst Wilhelmo de Haroldo. And here a message was brought to William about Harold. So Harold, who was in the north to defeat another invader, King Harald of Norway. And now, after defeating the Norse king at Stamford Bridge near York, he's heading south to meet his next foe. In the meantime, the Norman invaders do not stay idle, because we see hic domus incenditur. Here a house is burned. Hic milites exierunt de Hestenga. So here the soldiers have left Hastings et venerunt, and they have come ad prelium contra Haroldum regem, to the battle against King Harold. And we see the Norman knights charging. Hic Wilhelm dux interrogat vital, si vidisset exercitum Haroldi. So Duke William has sent men ahead to scout, and what did we just read? Here Duke William asks Vital if he had seen Harold's army. Iste nuntiat Haroldum regem de exercitu Wilhelmi ducis. We see the opposite side doing the same thing. This man tells King Harold about the army of Duke William. Hic Wilhelm dux alloquitur suis militibus. Here Duke Williams speaks to his soldiers, to his knights, ut preparent se viriliter et sapienter ad prelium. So he speaks to his knights that they should prepare themselves manfully and wisely for the battle. Which battle? Contra Anglorum exercitum, against the army of the English. And in the meantime, the battle has begun. We see men on horses charging with the lances, and other soldiers, the first casualties. And we continue our reading of the Latin text. hic ceciderunt levine et gyrd fratres Haroldi regis. So here fell Leofwine and Gyrth, brothers of King Harold. The battle rages on. Hic ceciderunt simul Angli et Franci in prelio. And here English and French fell at the same time in battle. Hic odo episcopus baculum tenens comfortat pueros. Our bishop appears again. Here Bishop Odo, who's holding a club, gives strength to the boys. Hic est Wilhelm Dux. Here is Duke William, who is showing his face to make himself known to his own men. So probably there had been a rumor that he had fallen, but he is still alive. We also see Eustathius or Eustace. Hic Franci pugnant, here the French fight, et ceciderunt qui erant cum Haroldo, and those who were with Harold fell, and we see the French killing their adversaries. And then we come to an important scene. Hic Harold rex interfectus est. And here King Harold is killed. Et fuga verterunt is the last line we see, and the English have turned in flight, although we now suspect this line to be added later on to fuel anti-English feelings during later wars. But I hope you have enjoyed this reading of the Bayeux Tapestry. If you like my content, please like this video, follow my channel, and check out my Patreon or buy me a coffee if you want to support me more. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you in another video. Valete!